Number one, Marmaduke fan here. So for a while, I've been wanting to do like a recommend of the Darth Vader series, but I didn't know what to say about it apart from it's good. Go get it. The art is nice. The story is cool. But as per usual with me, I was thinking about something completely separate, and then my thoughts wandered to Darth Vader in this series, and I finally found something to say about it. So the thing I was thinking about initially were the Redwall books by Brian Jacques. And what I was thinking about them was one of the cool things about that series of books is the villains tend to have a Darth Vader quality to them. But then as I thought about that, what does it mean to compare a villain to Darth Vader? That could be taken to mean a lot of things. Does that mean they wear a badass suit of armor with a long black cape? Does that mean that they're big and tough and powerful and they, run around coolly dispatching of their incompetent helpers? Does it mean that they're a tortured character who started as a good person and fell into evil and is kind of enslaved to their evil? So I guess what I kind of want to talk about now is, what is the Darth Vader character? Why have I thought this character is cool since I was a kid, and how I think this comic is really nailing the aspects of the character. So the initial point was going to be that a Darth Vader villain is sort of that big, tough warlord badass who runs around, and he dispatches of everybody who's incompetent. It's almost comedic, right? Someone messes up, you die. That is the price you pay for failure. But the Darth Vader character, depending on the movie you talk about, might make a very different impression on you. He's different depending on which of the original trilogy you're talking about, whether you're talking about him in the expanded universe or in the prequel trilogy. So let's try to make the point I'm thinking of. If you imagine episode 6, originally Star Wars, now A New Hope, the character of Darth Vader in that is essentially just a big, tall, cool-looking dude in a black suit of armor. He's imposing, he's menacing, he's obviously evil, and that makes him a contrast with Luke, who's a young, heroic a young man who's coming of age. So if you can imagine a world where George Lucas only got to make that first movie, or he got to make that cheap sequel he was thinking of making if Star Wars bombed, then Darth Vader would essentially be kind of a generic, cool-looking, tough guy villain. It's really in Empire Strikes Back that he gets the iconic Luke, I am your father, where he demonstrates that he's physically superior to Luke, and Luke can't even stand up to him very well. Luke can barely hold his own against Darth Vader. And it's the third movie where he has his redemption arc, and it's kind of like the generally accepted opinion that people don't like Return of the Jedi out of the three in the original trilogy. But the general nerd opinion seems to be the original trilogy is good, the prequel trilogy sucks. I kind of almost 99% adopt the very stereotypical opinion you're supposed to have about those movies. But I see there are good bits of the prequel trilogy, episodes 1 through 3. And thinking about the good and the bad of the prequel trilogy, I think helps me appreciate the success of this comic, because I think the good bits of the prequel trilogy were, emphasis on action, emphasis on having fun. So, it's not like Jar Jar Binks ruined the whole prequel trilogy. I think what was sort of melancholy about the prequel trilogy was the feeling that we were going to get a really solid origin for an iconic villainous character, and that if you watched all 6 together, you'd have almost a Shakespearean tragedy of seeing the rise and the fall of Darth Vader. And then the problem is that Darth Vader didn't come off as a very cool guy in the prequel trilogy. He kind of came off as a bit of a whiny guy whose fall was the result of his pride, but he isn't that sympathetic. So this segues perfectly into the first line of this comic, because I think the people writing this comic understand something very fundamental about the character. Emperor Palpatine says, "Why, Lord Vader? You have ruined yourself." Now, it took me a while to get this, but this is a double meaning. So he's ruined himself in that he's wrecked his armor in the fight he had in previous issues, which is a great run. Go get all 5 first issues if you can find them. Get the trade paperback. Really solid opening, and this is the start of a new arc, and it's a promising start. So I have confidence that this is going to continue to be really good. But so the double meaning is A, that he wrecked his suit of armor in a fight. He ruined his suit of armor. But the second meaning is that Darth Vader is a character who has ruined his soul and ruined his morality through decisions he has made. And I think whether they're doing it deliberately or not, this is connecting Darth Vader with Greek tragedy and Greek dialogues to a certain extent. I haven't read much Greek tragedy, but what I've learned, from learning about philosophy and reading about Socrates, is generally in Greek literature, the first line is meant to have special significance. So if Socrates says to someone, "Who are you?" The simple meaning, he's just asking someone what their name is, but the deeper meaning is that the whole book will focus on the topic of who are we, how do we know who we are. So this is the first line of a arc, and it is introducing us to a broad theme about Vader, is that he's a person who is ruined. He was once great, and now he's a shell. He's he's an armless, legless torso floating in water with really intense eyes. He's a character with rage. So when you talk about Vader as a tragic character, how do you do good tragedy? And I think the 2 examples that come to my mind when I think of tragedies is a Greek tragedy. Oedipus doesn't know that the woman is his mother, so the tragedy is he sleeps with her not knowing who she is. And then Shakespeare. The tragedy in Shakespeare, from what I've read of Shakespeare, is his heroic, tragic characters have noble qualities and they have negative qualities to their personality. And you, the audience, kind of know the whole time that this is leading them to their doom. Romeo and Juliet, the opening poem of Romeo and Juliet spoils that Romeo and Juliet are going to be dead at the end of the play. The whole point of the play is that doom is coming to these characters and that it's maybe unavoidable. Macbeth's another good example of that. Is Macbeth destroyed because fate and predestination has determined that he will be destroyed, or is he destroyed because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy? He thinks he's going to become the king, so he does evil things and he does whatever it takes to become the king, and his own choices lead to his fall and lead to his destruction. So if you want to write comic books, if you want to draw comic books, read some Shakespeare. And it's tough, but so many companies have done little, No Fear Shakespeare translations that help translate it into contemporary English. I like to go watch Shakespeare that's done by actors who know what they're doing, because a lot of times the body language and the vocal characterizations the actors bring to it help Shakespeare make more sense. But if you can read a lot of Shakespeare, if you can watch a lot of Shakespeare, it really gives you a solid feel for types of characters who have a psychology, who have a drive to them, and they may have a particular set of strengths and weaknesses, and these strengths and weaknesses determine their destiny. And this connects so well with the worldview of Star Wars. Yoda's, what is it? Fear leads to anger, anger to hate, hate leads to suffering. I don't know where this other quote comes from, but it's that, thoughts become words, words become deeds, deeds become character, character becomes destiny. This idea that your psychology, how you behave, how you live, this gradually shapes the kind of person you are and the kind of decisions you'll make in hard times. If you can't be a moral person, at the gas station when you're thinking, oh, should I steal this little thing? Then that's developing your moral character when it's going to be a much harder decision. Should I be a moral person and protect this life if it may cost me my own life? The little things in life test your character and help you develop your character for the more challenging decisions you have to make in life. And I think this is kind of the heart of Darth Vader. And what I really think is beautiful about this comic series so far is they are pulling ideas out of the movies, but they are not just copy pasting them. So a lot of the extended universe novels I've read, that what I really didn't like about them was lack of creativity. There'd just be, oh, it's a Han Solo character. Oh, it's a Jabba the Hutt character. Oh, it's a guy and a girl arguing, just like Han Solo and Princess Leia, right? There's a problem within all the nerdy extra Star Wars stuff of just rehashing the same George Lucas stuff over and over and over and over again. And that's where it's starting to lose some of its punch. Same problem with episode 7, the same story again. But this series of comics takes, the example I'm thinking of is Vader has a testing point where he is tempted by the light side of the Force. And he has to overcome that temptation to commit himself to the path he has chosen on the dark side. And this parallels Luke and on Dagobah being tempted or being tested by the dark side and having to overcome that test of fighting himself. But I actually even found Darth Vader's temptation more poignant, because the tragedy of the character is you see all this wasted potential. You see all this potential for him to have been a great, moral, heroic person, and he has squandered that potential because of his way of thinking and his way of looking at the world. I think George Lucas tried to tell that story in the prequel trilogy, and he just kind of fell short of capturing the heart of his own character. But this comic series is really, really good, especially if you love the Darth Vader character, because they're not clowning him. They're hitting the right aspects. Because on one side, Darth Vader is a very badass character. He's big, he's tough, he's one of the most powerful Force users in the Star Wars universe, right? He should be cool. But on the other side, he's also kind of a pathetic character. He's essentially a slave of Darth Sidious. He's a shadow of him, of his former self. He's abused and wasted his potential. So, and you see this in A New Hope. He's subservient to Grand Moff Tarkin. I think that's it, Grand Moff Tarkin. And he's essentially a dog on a leash. He's a dog on Grand Moff Tarkin's leash. He's a dog on Sidious's leash. So that can be a hard balance to find. A slave, a man who's a shadow of his former self, and a man who is very intense and very powerful and very passionate. The other thing I like about this comic series that not even the movies touch on is this idea of the dark side of the Force being about passion, and the light side of the Force being essentially Zen Buddhism, killing your wants and desires, killing your passion. And I think that's why a lot of people have sympathy for the Sith or want to be like the Sith. It's not because they want to run around murdering people, but they see that there actually is a reason why the Jedi Order are kind of arrogant and, full of themselves, and that the Sith actually have a legitimate point. They want to be free. I even think some of the Darth Maul comics captured that idea that the Sith have their side of the story. And the Darth Maul comics are pretty good too, but they're not rising to the depth of understanding the character I think the Darth Vader series is. And in the first 5 issues and continuing on into this issue. I guess the other thing I want to say about this is I have not watched any of the CGI Star Wars series yet. I've heard some okay things about them. I just haven't had the time to catch up. So this character, the Inquisitor, I know comes from, I think, Star Wars Rebels. So I had really no idea what this guy's beef was, what he was about. I knew he had a red lightsaber. So this comic is also a good example of introducing me to a character I've known very little about and have very little interest in, establishing him as a kind of an interesting guy, but not clowning Darth Vader in the name of propping up this new character. So this comic cover is a little bit fake news, even as a symbolic cover, because effectively when the Inquisitor and when Vader fight, Vader clearly has the upper hand. Vader's clearly the one who's in control and in command of the situation. So this helps. It sets up the Inquisitor as kind of a cool guy exploring the library, and he's got a spinning double lightsaber. Oh, it's got a cool, goofy lightsaber. But Vader demonstrates his command and demonstrates his control. Thus, it is allowing the main character of the book that I'm actually interested in reading about to be cool. And not allowing kind of extraneous nerdy things from the broader universe to supersede the coolness of the characters from the movies. I think the characters of the movies should never be clowned for secondary characters because we're interested in the extended universe, we're interested in the comics and the novels because we're interested in the movies which introduced us to the world. And when secondary characters stand side by side with, you know, the Darth Vaders and the Luke, Leia's, and Han Solos, the secondary characters can look cool, but they look cool because they are side by side with the characters that we know are cool. And when you clown the characters that we care about, it diminishes everything. It diminishes the characters that we care about, and it doesn't make us like the new characters. It makes us see them as upstagers. Nobody likes a ham actor who upstages everyone. So this could be just a general principle for the entirety of Marvel Comics that would be good for them to keep in mind. But good job introducing a character from the broader universe in a cool way. I'm kind of interested in this setup of Darth Vader being the trainer of a whole army of lightsaber users. They're not Sith. I don't know if they're supposed to be dark Jedi or just generic warriors with lightsabers but not force powers. But Darth Vader's clearly going to be in some sort of situation where he's got to test his mettle against a whole bunch of lightsaber wielders. He's going to be hunting down Jedi. This is cool because Vader's doing awesome stuff. He's kicking butt. He's taking names, but he's still a slave. And I think that's what gets to the heart of who he is. I don't know who this is. I'm betting it's something from Rogue One, which I haven't even watched. But based on the use of the characters in this comic, I have confidence that they'll be able to bring me up to speed on what some of this extended universe stuff is while treating Vader and the main characters with respect. So, high recommend for this book. I don't have much to say about the art. It's just kind of generally good. Nothing pops out as really bad to me, and I read quickly. So that might be the mark of a really good artist, is that they're subtle and they're kind of bringing me along for the adventure, and they're not letting their style upstage the story or disrupt the story. So maybe I'll take a more careful look at the art for a future video, but this is just a general go get all 6 issues of this. I'm #1 Marmaduke fan. Catch you guys later, and wish me luck on my studies. Peace.